Oh my God. Oh my God. If you are listening to this episode, this almost never happened. This episode almost never happened, or at least this intro never happened. I've spent the last 2 days trying to get this damn recorder, Rodecaster Pro situation to record this episode so that you can record the intro to this episode. And it's just been so complicated. I've done this so many times, but it just started messing up on me. And after I tried quite a few solutions and research on it and looking it up and Reddit and YouTube videos, I just turned it off and turned it back on. And here we are with, I hope, I'll check in a minute, but crystal clear audio. Oh man, it's good to be here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're joining me for this episode of Let's Keep Talking. Man, do we have a awesome conversation today. I am joined by Dr. Chris Donoghue, who is such a awesome gentleman, such a wonderful, wonderful guest, and our conversation was very cool. We talked all about sex. That's what he does. He does sex. He has sex. He teaches about sex. He is the head. He's the clinical director of education for the Sexual Health Alliance. Let me make sure I got that right. The director of clinical education. Chris Donoghue is the director of clinical education with the Sexual Health Alliance, which is an organization that lectures all over the world on sex positivity, body positivity, and unshaming yourself from, the way the world teaches sex. Anyways, the conversation we had was so awesome. We talked all about how to be more intentional with sex, intentional with dating. And in my opinion, it was the coolest. It was the greatest. Chris was a fantastic guest to have on. And the conversation just is rich with insight from him specifically. And I'm there to help. So anyways, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Thanks for checking it out. If you're listening to this episode on a podcast platform, please don't forget to rate the show, please. And if you're watching on YouTube, what's up, beautiful people? I wish I could see you, but you can see me, so we'll just do this one-way thing for a while. Maybe we'll do some group Zoom live episodes in the future. I don't know. That'd be cool to connect back with you guys. Anyways, I'll stop yapping. This intro has been a long time coming. I'm finally here doing this intro to this episode. And let's hop into it.
Yeah, the way you reached out just seemed very warm and sociable, and that's more compelling to me than the people that are hyper official.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, cool. I have to say, I've spent the last week reading the book Rebel Love.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. And I'm interested to talk with you about some of these topics. Was that like I can't remember the year. Was that like 8 years ago, or 2016?
Oh my God. I actually had a weird thought this morning that you might ask me about something like that. I don't remember 100%, which is a bizarre thing for people to probably hear. You work so long on these projects, they incubate for so long.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly when it got released. 8 years ago? I hope it wasn't that long ago. But maybe close to that, probably. Yeah. And that book came out at a really strange time. I had written my first book, Sex Outside the Lines. I don't remember when I wrote that one, but a few years prior.
Yeah.
And that book was hyper academic. And when you get the opportunity to write a book, you don't think that you might have that opportunity again. So I tried to kind of squeeze every thought I ever had into that book.
Yeah.
And then another publisher came around and they wanted me to write something that was a little more user-friendly, but also more current to the social topics that people were talking about.
Yeah.
So Rebel Love really tries to kind of meet the world where it's at that moment. And it would be interesting for me to look at it again, maybe in another decade, and see the relevance of what I was even talking about in that book, because things change quickly.
Yeah, things change a lot. What's the most current work of yours that I could hop onto to just get to know a little bit more updated information from yourself?
Nothing. So These are all the really good questions, kind of call me out. Historically, I was often doing different television work. I had a radio show, I had a podcast, I was writing books. And right now, I'm really focused on my clinical and academic work. So I have a clinical practice where I see patients. And then I'm also the clinical director of education for the Sexual Health Alliance. And I travel the country through them, with them, to train doctors, nurses, therapists, sex geeks, people that are just curious about these topics. And we just had our, yeah, exactly. We just had our inaugural convention, conference, our
In
first
Denver,
conference
yeah?
in Denver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super rad.
I was wanting to come to it, and I reached out to, I don't know who a contact was, but I had talked and said like, hey, like, I'm a little bit short on funds right now. Life is difficult, but I would really love to come out and join you guys for the Alliance thing. And is there any way I could do I could help out? I could shoot some videos. I could just set up chairs. I could do anything. Like, what can we do? And so that was kind of in the works. And then I realized I have a gym. That's what I do for work, is I own a personal training studio. And then I realized we had an event on the same weekend. And so that just didn't happen. But that's okay.
Okay. I hope we would have helped you get there. We work really hard to try to make our work accessible. At least I do.
Yeah.
So when people reach out to me about things like that, I try to help people find their way in.
Yeah.
Because, you probably actually, I'm curious about your mission statement, but mine is really about transformation.
Yeah.
I'm not in anything I'm doing for the money or attention, or when people reference my brand, I laugh because I don't think in those terms. I just really want to look back at my life and know that my legacy was one of using all the resources and privilege and whatever I have to try to just do something meaningful.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that's kind of what fitness becomes.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful personal mission, Chris. Yeah, for me it's similar. I started out in fitness. That's how I got my start. Was personal training, and I loved the feeling that I could get of empowerment, of being able to feel really good in my body, see changes that made me feel great, and the idea that I could help other people feel really comfortable in their skin through overcoming challenges and those kind of things was awesome to me. So I started out when I was 15. I got a job as a janitor at a gym, and I trained people for free afterwards. Like after the gym would shut down, I would just be cleaning, and then I'd like kind of meet a couple people and do some training. And like I was freaking successful, man. Like right out the gate, I actually graduated high school and had about 33 personal training clients that I was training full time. I was making like $11,000 a month. I didn't know what to do with it, and opened up a studio. And it's really just like God has continued to create opportunities and bless things that have continued to, or has continued to bless this journey of helping other people. And to be honest, man, it started in the fitness area, but kind of where that started to shift for me was seeing just how much more the conversation needed to be about people's heart and about your emotions, and saying like, hey, babe, you have worked so hard to lose weight and get in shape and feel sexy, but you are still hating yourself. And so there are so many people that are great examples of feeling sexy and strong in their skin, and they don't have the body that everyone else subscribes to thinking they should have. And so maybe there's lessons we can learn from them. So for me, it is, I think the reason that it was so powerful with the training stuff is because deep down it was, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a fitness person. I'm just like someone who I just want to help other people. And now the podcast really is just my space every single week to spend time with someone who cares a lot about the same thing, and just have a conversation that if someone listens in, then maybe it'll help them to, help them on their journey of developing a richer life by letting go of the shit inside that keeps you from that.
Yeah, and two things that came up for me in what you just said. One is, I imagine the podcast is part of you rounding out your own work for yourself.
Yeah.
I realize that in my work, everything I do is so internal and is so cognitive. So the podcast lets you tap into that because your work is so somatic and body-based. And then what's interesting about your journey is mine was the same. I got into all of this, whatever it is I do. I don't even always know what I do. People say, what do you do? I'm like, I write, I teach, I talk, I do the clinical work. But I started out in nutrition and food science.
Oh, cool.
And
yeah,
I didn't know what I was going to do with that. Yeah, I just thought the science of food was fascinating. Like, why are we eating what we're eating? What do we need? And through that, it's what came up for me was what came up for you with fitness is I realized that's great for the body and that's great for the physical, but I realized there's so much more going on internally, right?
Yeah.
And that diet and nutrition are so important, but that you're missing a piece if you don't round it all out. And then I kind of slowly moved into psychology.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, so do I just leave the gym and become a Buddhist monk and begin to teach people spirituality, or do I find, where's the middle ground?
Yes, and I've thought about that at times because you hit the other point when you mentioned God is I think spirituality becomes the other missing part of all this, right? Because it's like body, inside, and then we have to go above and beyond ourselves, right? So I feel like that's the missing piece. And when people ask me, where does psychology need to go? I think we need to bring spirituality more into it, and we're so afraid of talking about it in psychology. It's almost like talking about aliens at times.
Yeah. You might think this is interesting. I had a conversation with one of the coolest authors in the world, Thomas More, who writes a book called...
Wait, do you sat with Thomas More? Of course, I'm very familiar.
Last week, man, like an 83-year-old sage of a dude. It was gangster, and like the whole reason of writing the book, The Care of the Soul. Of course, I might be butchering his whole reason for writing the book.
Right here, I have. Wait, you're blowing my mind because right here is his book, The Soul of
Sex. Yeah. That's funny, man, because I saw that on when I was looking at just his career. I saw that as one of his books and thought, okay, maybe that's the next read. So you'll have to let me know how you like it. But the word psychotherapy in the original in the Greek is psyche therapos, which translates to soul and care, right? Which is fucking dope, right? So yeah, 100%, man. I think it's really awesome.
But we don't do that in psychology. We've turned psychology into a mechanism of social control and normalization. And that's why when I first got again into the field, I started doing work in depth psychology, which is Jungian and Freudian work, which is kind of comparable to Thomas More's work. He's all about the deeper stuff.
Absolutely.
Because psychology, as it's taught now, they just want to work on what you're thinking and what you're doing and get you back to work. They don't go deep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, man, I really, if we didn't have to cut this thing off at noon, I would love to talk about Jungian psychology and get all in it, because that stuff is so interesting. Just the main thing I took away from the conversation with Thomas and just his work in general. Have you read Have you read Care of the Soul? Wonderful book. Just the whole premise of like cure versus care, tending to being there, and understanding. Something he said was understanding the mystery, something of like a contradiction of just understanding, widening your heart wide enough to sit with the complexity, contradiction of life. Maybe the experience of sitting with the mystery is one of the greatest forms of therapy, as opposed to, hey, I'm anxious. Can you take this shit away? Hey, I'm depressed. Can you fix me?
That's right. That's right. That's right. We want it quick. We want it simple. We want it easy. We don't want to sit with complexity, as you said. Or he said, and you said, we don't want to sit with mystery. And that's also probably what you see in your work, and I see it in mine. How quickly can I do this? And you say to them, it's a process. It's a journey. More is born out of it than just that one thing you're here for. Let's just see where we go.
Yeah. And the process of going through it is the whole point. It's what you're going to expand to, what you're going to arrive at through the process of it is so much. You'll realize that's why you're here in the first place. And
it changes me. That's why I love my work. And I say that to my interns. The most powerful thing is not just that you're doing work you can always walk away from feeling like you did something meaningful, but you also are transformed in every single session you do with a client because it's working on you as it's working on them.
Yeah, I know. I've told everyone in my family and my partner, Lauren, that I think I found a cheat code with having a podcast because I get to have the coolest conversations with people. And I did it. I did it to help people. I'm like, I'm going to help people. And then every episode I'm like, oh my God, that was for me.
It's good stuff, man. It's a good way to go. But good for you, Thomas More. That's a good find. That's a good get.
I know. Cool.
Well done.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And now I have Chris. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. So
happy to be here.
Look, dude, the stuff that is on my mind is shame around sex and seeing if maybe we can, in this conversation, give people some tools, some insights to begin to notice the the potential for personal empowerment in their relationships and their sex life and that kind of thing. So maybe we can just start the conversation by talking about how difficult it is for people to notice how much of their relationship with sex is found in shame, and maybe some ways that we people can start warming up to the idea that shame isn't something to be whispered about.
Yeah. So I would start broader to get to that point and say that um, I love working in sex because it's an entry point that takes you to the deepest parts of a human being faster than any other topic or theme because of the way sex is looked at in our culture. And so when I'm working with someone around their sexuality, which is the best assessment tool I have, I'm learning about their boundaries or lack thereof. I'm learning about their communication skills. I'm learning about their relational history, their relational traumas. I'm learning about their relationship to their body. I'm learning about their relationship to pleasure. I'm learning about their relationship to confidence. Like, it is all in there. And so it's such a powerful entry point to the deepest parts of people's psyches. And so I love that work, because if we can do work on dismantling, let's say, shame, which is a core part of it all, then I know that work will kind of trickle out and it'll have a positive impact on other areas of their life. And so even if a client doesn't come to me directly for something sex-based, which as a certified sex therapist, often people come to me for marital, relational, and sex therapy, even if it's not driven by that, we look at that because so much is buried within that.
Yeah.
And if you can undo, as we'll talk about, the shame of your sexuality and eroticism, then you're going to have confidence to just live in a more authentic way in general. Because again, that's the most shame-based part of ourselves.
Why is it that way? Why is sex so shamed in our culture?
You know, there's so many theories. I'm not a historian within sexology, but I've put a lot of research in, having done thousands upon thousands of clinical hours sitting with people looking at their sexual histories and trying to look at how they became who they are within their eroticism. I would say culturally, well, I'll say this, it's culture first, right? And then it's family, and then it's society. So our culture at large, driven by, I think, a lot of history from religion, and some other stuff, and we can unpack some of that. That's the wider scope, right? So shame exists within that. Then you're born in a family, and the family is either sexually anxious, sex negative, sexually traumatic, or sex positive. Then you enter society, and you're looking at all the messaging that's coming from television, social media, and that has become a really powerful thing for us to look at psychologically, because think about how many hours a week someone spends burying their psyche in social media. That is a powerful socializer, right?
Yeah.
Right. And often, as I watch television shows and and listen to media, you'll hear little seeds of sex negativity or body negativity being planted, right? And so we have to pay attention to that as a site and a place of healing within that. And so it's those three large pieces, but then you have to add these collateral pieces, which is someone's sexuality is impacted by their gender. Well, as a man, I can only or should only.
Yeah.
As a mom or a dad or a lawyer or a doctor or a professional, I can only, I should. So then we're buried further under our labels and identities.
Yeah, I'm
right?
supposed to, right?
So I always say, what's up?
Yeah, I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to be this way. This is who I need to be, right?
100%. You probably have a list of 10 I'm supposed to's based on being a partner, whatever your identities are, your profession, whatever religious identity you have. It's quite profound and wild. And so I always say it's the rare person that is living fully and truly in their authentic sexuality, because it's buried under all of those systems and forces.
Instead of being, like you said, sex takes you to the deepest part of a human, it's buried so deeply. Instead of being found in all of the expressions of someone lightly, just like you find a little bit of someone's personality in all that they do, the sexuality component is the one that you don't see. You don't see sexuality being embodied and expressed in day-to-day life. It's so dirty, so you shame it for you. It's so dirty, so you save it for someone that you love. Just
that's the best thing, right? I love that soundbite. Like, it's so disgusting and filthy and shame based. I'm gonna save it for my partner when I get home. It's like, wow, that's a wild thing, and that's why I think that work if we can undo and unearth some of that, it has such pervasive impacts on the rest of the parts of you, right? If you can tackle that.
Yeah.
So I think, so I think culturally we need to really look at that. And also, when I look at someone's upbringing, think about how that's the one part of you that never gets mirrored. And mirroring is really important because that's where self-worth or confidence come from. A part of you that's engaged. Every other part of you is engaged.
Yeah.
Your intellect, your hobbies, but your sexuality gets ignored. And it's something you have to do quickly, quietly, privately. And then also, and then I'll stop rambling, is think of the first time we usually encounter sexuality, which hopefully it's not through a trauma or an assault.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's through solo sex, masturbation.
Yeah.
And think about how that comes into our lives. Do it quietly, quickly. Don't let anyone know. Don't talk about it. So even our first experience of sex is shame-based.
Yeah, absolutely. And then your entire, until you begin to change that, you repeat the habits, You're a grown up still jumping when you hear someone else in the house when you're masturbating.
Yes.
Instead of saying like, "Hey, there's might as well be cooking a meal in here. There's nothing going on that should be shameful."
That's right. 100%. And then you bump into like this side issue of we just culturally have a lot of pleasure phobia. And so that kind of gets woven in there as well, right? Like we shame that,
Yeah. You need to get back to work, baby. You need to get back to work. You need to make some money. You need to go buy something, get on that grind set, man. How would you encourage people? For me, I know that one of the first things to begin to unravel in my sexual healing is the need to perform and show up inside that specific, what I believe to be acceptable, what I think my partner expects of me, what I think that people expect of me. How would you encourage someone, Chris, to begin to get out of a performance and appearance obsessed association with sex, so they can begin to show up more pleasure focused, more embodied, more expressive?
Yeah. So what's the one quick tip to undo all 35 layers of the cultural program and all that? It's so easy. Just do this one thing and you'll be good. If you probably hear that. It's like, what's the one thing I can do to have that dream body I want? And you're like, well, we're up against genetics, income, access to the right foods. You have a gym nearby. Like there's so much buried in that. Weather matters, if you can get outdoors or not. So a couple things. Where does my mind want to go? So we have to like peel the onion away. And that's what sex therapy winds up becoming, right? And I want to add a quick caveat to this, which is, and I was saying this when I was lecturing in Denver, that sex therapy isn't therapy done on sex. Sex therapy is sex used therapeutically, right? So how can we use your eroticism, as I kind of said earlier, to undo shame in general? So we have to peel back the layers. The first thing I always say is we have to get rid of these pathologizing concepts of things like sexual dysfunctions, because you mentioned performance. And I'm always educating people on the fact that a healthy penis is supposed to provide disappointments. It's not an erectile dysfunction, it's an erectile disappointment. It's not a sex toy. It's not a dildo. Your penis isn't supposed to get hard and stay hard when you want, how you want, where you want, as long as you want. You have a body. You're a human. And I say this to every penis owner that I work with. I say to them, ready for this zinger? Every 10 years of life, you have another 10% increase the likelihood of erectile disappointments. So as you age, a healthy aging body slowly starts to have reduced erectile functioning. So in your 40s, 40% of the time, it's not going to be doing what you want. Guess what? In the 50s, about half the time. Make room for that, right? So I start to try to like dispel the myths, because that's a huge thing.
Yes.
And then I tell them, stop performing. Good sex is when you step into the room and you're looking at your partner and you say to yourself, what turns me on to imagine doing to them or with them? Right? We're not trying to please.
Yeah. So that area of thinking is so dark for so many people. There's like, I don't even know if I can go in there. So many people feel like that. And there's like the idea of saying, this isn't about how I look. This isn't about how hard I stay as a man or how receptive and open I stay as a woman. This isn't about the very rigid one or two little performance metrics that we focus on, but instead this is about just like eating a good meal or anything, just about enjoying the experience in a very broad sense. The focus on pleasure can help us get there. Yeah.
And I use the exact analogy you use, but I always talk about desserts. My clients are always like, we talk a lot about food. I use a lot of food references. I say to them, sex is like dessert, man. Dessert has no goal but pleasure, right? Like meals are about nourishment, satiation, all these different pieces, but dessert is literally just supposed to be a site of fun, joy, and pleasure. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And that's why I say sex should be like, if you enter it thinking, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do it? You were doing it wrong and you're not even having sex anymore. We've left eroticism and now you're in ego and some other thing, And so I try to tell people we have to come back. And so again, it's about peeling away all of that pressure that comes in from the outside of, again, I'm a man, I'm supposed to do it a certain way. And then let me make it even more complicated. So where have most people seen sex take place? Pornography.
Yeah.
Most people, that is the only place where they've seen it happen. And we then have to do some porn literacy, where I tell them, just like if you watch an action film, you can't expect yourself to be able to drive your car off, and do flips. Sex is, porn is shot with sexual gladiators. They're performers. They're chosen for special reason.
Sexual gladiators. That's great.
Yeah, totally. Like they are the Olympic athletes of sexuality. We should not be expecting that to be how we perform. And they're utilizing all sorts of tips, tricks, pills, shots, but yet that is still in our brain, the only vision we have for maybe what it's supposed to look like. Yeah. So that's another branch that we have to dismantle. So as you're already here, yes.
How much of the porn you consume is from, Pornhub.com, or is it from paid for sites with some of the more, I forgot the word that you use often to describe it, about the type of porn, ethical porn.
Amateur.
No, ethical. Ethical porn. How much of the porn do you watch do you watch sexual gladiator porn, or do you tend to watch more porn that it represents more of the bodies and expressions that you feel true?
Okay. And this is an important question, because I want this question to be a takeaway, right? Which is, I say to my clients what I say to myself: watch porn first and foremost that reflects back the body you have. Because you also want to be thinking about your body esteem and sexual esteem, and that's impacted by that. So for instance, if you have a smaller penis or you're larger bodied, please do not watch porn that has gym bodied or larger penis people. That is you not working on your sexual and body esteem.
That's huge. That's right? A huge insight.
Hard stop. Yes. Because again, you need to see your body. You need to see your body receiving pleasure. So I work with my clients on the kind of porn they're looking at. And then of course we look at the ethics of it. And what's really beautiful is feminist porn, which does exist, is a beautiful example of a more powerful and more positive influence, because feminist porn and ethical porn tends to back away from just having a goal. It's not penetratively obsessed. It's not all about orgasm. They actually have foreplay. Yeah. There's aftercare. Yeah. There's sensuality. There's affection.
Yep. It's interesting because, the porn. I know that porn, like Pornhub, works very similar to like Instagram, TikTok, in terms of algorithmically suggesting you things that you want to watch. And so there is the feedback of sorts of going, I don't really know what Pornhub looks like for people because I know what it looks like for me, right? But so much of the porn that is on those websites is completely focused on the biggest dick fucking the most pitiful girl, and as soon as there's the male orgasm, the whole thing just closes up shop and we're done. And it's interesting. One of the things that I've really sat with a lot in my sexual healing over the last year or two, from having a compulsive, disembodied, not pleasurable experience to now a lot better, has been realizing the multiple levels to a sexual experience, only one of those being the excitement of the visual component and entertainment. But I mean, honestly, more like 90% of it being what's felt and experienced in the body and interpersonally between the people. And you can't capture that very well with a camera. At least I don't see it very often on Pornhub.com. It's more like, how can we make this WWE SmackDown session even bigger and better? You know what I mean? But what's interesting, Chris, is, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. One of the things that's helped me a lot in my journey with sexual healing has been moving away from seeing sex as just being about more and better and exciting, which is for me the of porn. It's just there's always better, more, and more novel, to the element of connection and intimacy experience with a person. And the way that one example that came to mind as I was meditating, journaling on this, is like, if you think about the biggest, coolest VR gaming headset up that's got like a chair and screens and all these sounds and smokes and stuff, and it's the coolest game you could ever play by yourself, right? Versus maybe checkers with someone else. There's a totally different component. It's like, yes, this game maybe isn't as grandiose and forever giving you exactly what you could ever imagine in your fantasy world, but it's with somebody else, and that's such an important component of sexuality that's missed so often.
Yeah, because 2 points that I think are really powerful in what you said. Number one, sex isn't about bigger, faster, harder, right? But in our culture, we think that's always the qualities of something better or more important. Yeah. And for sex, it tends to be one of the rare things where it's the opposite. Better sex is slower, softer, more focused. And the way you have sex with yourself will transfer to the way you have sex with your partners.
That's great.
And
that's
as humans, right? And so, let's come back and talk about that, because I think there's some really important things we can discuss around how to have more mindful masturbation. But we're relational beings. Our brain is a social organ. We wire to those around us. And when we're in a primary relationship, we are only separated by our skin. Our brains literally wire, and we impact each other's hormone release, blood pressure, heart rate. And so we are nourished by relationality. It's literally a vitamin. We need touch. We are very touch starved. And so I agree with you. I don't want us to move towards this VR AI version. And so I don't think porn is bad, but I think porn can be bad. And I think it can be very misused. And I think we should use it as a way to harness our embodiment and improving our relationality. And so I 100% agree with you. We just don't take it seriously enough, because we just think masturbation is like a Snickers bar. It's just candy. It's quick. It's fast. It doesn't count. No, it counts. I'm sure you say there's a trainer. That Snickers bar counts.
Yeah, the Snickers does count. This phrase "sex is an afterthought" sticks with me a lot, in just reading through some of the book, the Rebel Love, and it's just so last. It's so like, jack off, I go get my rocks off real quick and get back to real life, get back to life. I love so much. I just want to say that directly. Like, I love so much what I've picked up from your work that just is about sex first, about sex as a guide for the most wonderful forms of connection and intimacy, which is absolutely necessary for us as warm mammal species. Man, we need it. And it's just really cool, the work that you do to pull it out of the darkness and put it in people's forethoughts.
Yeah, and what you just said about reading my book is, I think there is something really important in that, because like when I was 15 or 16, that's when I started actually going to the gym and working out. And I'm older than you are. And back when I started working out in my teenage years, no one else was really working out. Some athletes were, but I wasn't really an athlete, and I was. So I lived in the suburbs, and there was one tiny little gym, and I was generally the only person really there on the weekends, except for some people maybe doing rehab. How did I learn how to become fitness minded? How do I learn a gym? By looking at workout magazines, right? And so that's another example of how we learn how to be sexual by the porn we're looking at, just like I learned how to work out at the gym by watching others and by reading the right magazines and learning proper form. And so I want people to learn proper sexual form, and you have to do it by looking at the right stuff. You watch the wrong people at the gym, you learn horrible form, and you're going to hurt yourself, right? And so it's like there's a very complementary process in both of those things. And so if the only thing people take away from this podcast today is this, make it that the sex you're having matters and it counts, especially the sex you're having with yourself.
You're going to have sex with your partner that resembles the sex you have with yourself. That's something you said.
Yes.
That's interesting,
Yeah.
man. It's
Yeah.
just really cool to bring more honor, bring more intentionality to supporting and expressing and discovering and growing the sexual lens that which you see yourself and others and the world around you, the erotic lens. That's really, really cool.
Yes.
Something I want to ask you about. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a doctor who's a cognitive neuroscientist. Her name's Dr. Trish Lee. Dr. Trish Lee.
Okay.
She has a program called Porn Brain Rewire, I think, and her stance is that porn is for many people is abused like a mood regulating drug, 24/7 available to give you some dopamine, right? And that's been pretty helpful for me to begin to see porn through the lens of am I desiring sex right now? Am I turned on, and do I desire sexual content and a sexual release, or am I just bored and then I'm using sex as something just to dull my mind, and then in a sense starting to drain my sexual tank for the rest of my life? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you nailed it, because part of me working with clients on more mindful sexuality or mindful masturbation is to do a check-in. And I have some of my patients are doing this even before partnered sex with maybe their husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend of decades. Why am I wanting sex right now? What is it I'm seeking? Because I agree with you. A lot of people collapse. A lot of people confuse boredom and loneliness with horniness. And when they start to actually ask themselves, what am I feeling right now? Oh, wait a minute, I'm bored. I'm masturbating or looking at porn because I'm bored. Okay, that's okay sometimes, but is there something else maybe you could also do? Oh, I'm going to do it because I'm lonely. Great, sometimes, but is there something else you can do? Can you reach out to someone? Can you connect? And then partnered sex. This is huge when I do couple and marital therapy. Are you having sex with your partner because without that, you have no other form of intimacy or connection? We need to know. We need to work on that then. Because there are some couples that are held together only by that. They have no other form of connection. They have no other interest. They have no other compatibility. That's not good. And so I want them to confront that. Yeah. Is that the only reason why you're having sex? Because it makes your partner happy? Because without that, you have nothing. That's not good.
Yeah. Why am I wanting sex right now?
It's a powerful assessment tool. And I love that. Yeah.
The check-in is really great because it's not in my opinion, it's not about saying that that something shouldn't happen. You shouldn't watch porn. You shouldn't have sex. You shouldn't have, you shouldn't fuck strangers. You shouldn't fuck your friends. You shouldn't, there's all these rules about sex. And so often we tune into what people tell us instead of how we feel, because the inside's so murky and, we don't know how we feel because we never practice knowing how we feel. And so, of course we don't know what's going on. I love that question. What am I, truly I've been checking in and saying, am I horny right now? That's been a really helpful practice for me in my sexual health, and just finding, I'm reconnecting now with that sense of just sexual desire as a felt experience, as opposed to just the brain going, I'm bored as shit. Let's scroll on Instagram or let's scroll on Pornhub. Yeah. The question, why am I wanting sex right now? What are some of let's say I am wanting sex right now. What are some of the answers to that question? What do we as humans really want to experience in a sexual experience with someone else?
Sometimes it's, and some of these words naturally have a negative connotation. And so I want to kind of pull that out, because the first one is sometimes it's about our ego, and we can have healthy ego or unhealthy ego, but we need ego. It's the part of ourselves that takes care of ourselves. And so sometimes we just need recognition. We need mirroring. We need to know that we exist. We need to know that we're loved. We need to know that we're cared for, because our self-esteem is both internal and external, right? Yeah. Our self-worth is reflected back to us partially by those around us. Those around us help us understand who we are and our worth, which is also a side note why you got to be very careful about the people you spend time around and the way they talk to you and what they reflect back. So we also don't talk enough about the fact that we have, what's that?
I was just going to add something, if you don't mind, to that. There's a quote that I love, and I don't know what the philosopher's name was, but it says, I am not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am.
Yes. Powerful. Powerful. The depth of that statement is massive. We don't live in reality. No. Because we don't live in reality. We do not live in reality. I say to all my patients, your thinking and your feelings, interrogate them. interrogate them. We buy into them as though they're real and they're true. I'm thinking it, I'm feeling it. You didn't text me on my birthday. That means you hate me.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Maybe someone passed away that day. Maybe, check in on the reality. We need to do more reality testing. And I agree with you. We make so many assumptions. And if your relationship is not going well, you might be living relationally in a negativity bias where you're interpreting neutral things as negative. We do not live in reality. So 100% to what you said, 100%. The point I was going to make earlier was that, we don't talk enough about the fact that we have body esteem and sexual esteem. And that's sometimes why we want sex, is to get some of that validated, right?
Yeah.
So we approach sex for that. We approach sex sometimes because we just need to get touch. We need to be held. That's powerful. We don't think enough about that. I've said to some clients, when's the last time someone touched you?
Yeah.
And some clients have said it's been weeks.
And then what's so difficult is that because there's so many, tripwires and sticker bushes and trying to get to just fucking being touched and naked and close and seen and felt and looked at and desired. Like, that's what we all want, but there's all of these things that we started out this conversation talking about, that we inherit from religion and society and from our family and things. Yeah, and that touch, I want to be touched. That's why I want sex right now. I want to feel touched, and I want to feel desired, and I want to have my sexual esteem, or my feeling that I'm worthy on a sexual dimension validated from you, the person I care about so much.
And that's hard for some people, especially men in our culture, to be that vulnerable and to say to another person, as a man, I need to just be touched. I just need to feel validated. I need to be held.
Yeah.
That is so scary for men to say, right?
Yeah.
We still live in a culture where some men, God bless them, because I understand the pressures they're under in our culture, but it hurts my heart when I go to the movies and I see two buddies sitting one seat away from each other because they can't even handle sitting next to each other, right? I'm thinking like,
TikTok.
So much work to do.
There was like a viral TikTok that went around a long time ago of like it was like a video down into a hot tub. You know what I'm talking about? From like a balcony, and it was like two bros sitting in a hot tub 6 feet away because they're not gay, and it just like
That's so real, though. That's so real, right? So I try to work with men to say that to their partners, like, babe, I just need to feel important. I just need to feel special, and to tap into that. Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just excited. I keep kind of like jumping into what you're saying.
No, please. Please.
That's such a wonderful thing to bring. Like, if you've, like, I don't feel like I'm being touched. I need that touch. I need sex. I need that affection. And you can either use your words and say, I really want to be touched by you. Or you can just get bitter that you're not getting sex more. And why would you choose the second one? Why not use your words? We got a little bit of an internet connection there for a second. We're good? You can still hear me?
Yeah, you just touched on in why don't we use our words? You touched on a really huge skill that I work with couples on in my office. Excuse me. We aren't good at that. We have talking about shame again, we have a lot of shame on expressing needs. We really struggle to do that. As children, we don't have access to words when we're very young. And once we start to become verbal, we don't have enough of an understanding of ourselves to ask for what we need. And so parents have to interpret, they have to mind read, right? Children will act or do or say something, and a parent who has a good enough connection will say, oh, they're just tired or they're hungry, right? Mind reading, they're guessing. As adults, we still pretty much do that. Instead of just saying, you know what, that really hurt my feelings. That made me sad that you said that. Can we talk about that? We act it out. We still as adults act everything out instead of getting right to the need, jumping right to it and saying, I just need you to hold me. I just need you to tell me you're proud of me. I just need to tell you that made me sad. I work with adults for years on getting to the need, jumping over the temper tantrums and the acting out, the slamming doors, the name calling. Go to the need. Ask for
the need.
We struggle to do that. Too vulnerable.
And it's like, yeah, exactly. It's too vulnerable. Like, I don't want to have to tell you what I need. I want you to know what I need. That makes you a good partner for me. And it's like, no, you being a good partner for me is someone that's aware enough to be able to communicate what you need from me to feel loved, because you're not, I don't know
That's
you.
right.
I don't know you.
That's right.
I wasn't born with you in my body. I just met you, in whatever stage of life. Maybe it was a decade ago, but that's such a powerful thing, and something that we can all learn from so much more, how to use our words. I think that's really cool. It's a really cool insight, man. It's that like we act out so much growing up, and then we never remember that like we have a new skill set, new achievement unlocked. Your words.
And that's how you know you've reached adulthood, I think, psychologically, is when you are able to identify the need clearly. Like, that statement made me sad. And here's another example, sticking with this theme. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We still don't, sticking exactly with that, we still aren't even good at identifying the need that we need to express. So here's the example I use all the time with my patients. If I'm walking down my neighborhood and my neighbor almost hits me with their car, what do most people do? They go to anger and they scream and they yell and they say, "What the F, you almost hit me." Okay, what then happens? The person gets out of the car and says, "F you, look where you're going," and a fight happens. That is not actually an honest emotional expression. The most honest moment would have been, "Oh my God, I'm scared. You almost hit me." And then the person would get out of the car and say, "Oh no, are you okay? I'm sorry."
Oh, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Because it's too vulnerable to go to the real emotion. We are too scared of real emotions. Real emotions are always soft. If you almost get hit by a car, you got scared. Be scared. "Oh, my life, you almost hit me." And then it brings a soft response. I teach that to couples. Go to the soft, primary, honest emotion. That is where functionality lives. Your partner will receive you.
Yes.
Right? Stop going to anger and these harsh defensive emotions.
Yes, exactly. And that's why too. I thank you so much for your work, your insights. These are beautiful, and I'm so grateful for them. That is why it's so fucking important to turn inwards and to open your heart and to process pain in the past and process when the world did hurt you, because when it does hurt you and you don't make sense of it, process it, and continue on and grow up and mature and age, then it's defense. I'm looking for the next motherfucker to try me, and he just tried me with his Honda. That's right. He just tried me with his Honda.
But imagine moving, but it's like, that's not even self-love, to move through the world in that state with all that undigested material in your body that you're just vomiting out on everyone around you, including the people you care for. Yeah. And then this goes full circle back to our original entry point, which is, that's why I help people use sex therapeutically. So what's that connection? What we talked about. If you can just slow down and say, I'm wanting to masturbate, or I'm wanting to have sex. What am I feeling? What's the need? That is you starting to do that process of connecting to your deeper self and identifying feelings and needs, which will then translate to maybe someday having the vulnerability to say to your neighbor who almost hits you, "You scared me. I almost got hit." Right? Like, it's all connected. And that's why I love bringing sex into that.
It's really interesting that a baby, do babies get angry like infants, or do they just express their need in a very soft, sad, helpless way? Like, that's about it.
It depends. Babies get very dysregulated often, and it's just a big blob of evacuating and discharging energy, because emotion, first and foremost, is an energy in our body, and then it moves into an action tendency, and we feel compelled to act it out. But healthy people think or bypass the action tendency and go right to the need. Because emotions, honestly, if someone said to me, break down what emotions are in one sentence, I'd say they're like the signal on a dashboard. They're telling us that we have a need and something's required. Yeah. And if we could just get right to that, we're higher functioning, as opposed to acting it out and honoring the action tendency of screaming, throwing something, hitting someone, slapping something, slamming a door. Skip the action statement and go to the need. It's a dashboard signal. What does my car need right now? That's the emotion, is that light.
And having needs doesn't make you weak. It makes you human.
Thank you. Yes, like, say that 10 times. There's strength in the ability to acknowledge you have a need and to express it. That's strength to me.
And it's so attractive. Like, it's so attractive for someone to come to you and to express their need, to you with words that are empowered, that says, I need you. I need to feel your touch. I need to feel you close. I need to feel desired by you. And not in a way that feels blaming, but a way that just expresses just what I need.
That's right.
And whenever you have time to get around to that, I'm available. Okay, so look, I know we're closing in on an hour, so I do want to throw one other topic in here for us to chat about. Intentionality in dating. So for so many people, dating, and you know this better than I do, so I apologize for talking, but I just want to intro this question. There's work, there's the way we work, there's you should get out there and get a great job and focus on retirement. There's this ambient, path for us to run. And then there's the religion one that says this is who God is and how you ought to be and what's morally correct and whatnot. And most people at some point in their life wake up from one of those and begin to develop some form of autonomy of choosing what's best for them. But the thing of dating, I don't think most people ever consider that a lot of people never consider that dating, the rules around dating have been made by other people for them, and you can make your own rules.
Oh, yeah. But say more. What's the question? Because I think you made a great point.
How can people begin to feel empowered to look at relationships as something that can be unique to them? Like they can create a relationship, whether gently question monogamy, whether they want to be with one person forever or want to be with one person for a while. How can people begin to open up and bring some curiosity into how they relate to dating?
I love this because I agree with you. Most people see dating. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get us off topic. I was about to take us in a different direction, but yes, staying with this. Number one, by seeing dating the same way I want them to see relationship. Let me actually step back. I want people to remember dating is relationality. And what I mean by that is bring ethics to it. Like I will hear people say, it's just an app. No. It's a human being on the other end of that. And you're healing them or harming them and making this scene in this world and that process harder or worse. Take that seriously. So I just want to throw that out there. Be ethical in your dating. It's a human being that you're swiping on and talking to. Having said that, I want people to approach dating and apps the same way they approach relationships, which is transformatively, where we get to learn about ourselves. And people are like, wait, what? Yeah, man. Like parenthood and relationships and dating are mirrors being held up and showing us who we are and where our work is. So date from your value system. Date in a way that helps grow you up and transforms you. Date to be better. Okay, then I want to go further and say a couple things. Approach dating very differently. Dating, people usually enter it thinking it's about getting. A great date is where I got them. They liked me and I liked them. No. A great date is where you went authentically and hopefully they went authentically, and whether or not you were a match, that's success. And sometimes leaving a date, realizing we're not a match, is success. So date as yourself. Date to be known, not to be liked. Don't wear what you think you're supposed to wear to make them happy. Don't say what you think is going to make them happy, because then you're trapping them, you're lying, you're misleading. Date as yourself. You loved that.
Date. Look, here's a little note sheet from the book Rebel Love that I was reading earlier. And one thing I wrote in here with hearts all around it is date to be known, not liked. I love that.
1,000,000,000%. And that should be like a message in relationships as well. We're too focused on impression management and people pleasing, and that's the death of individuality, authenticity, and transformation. So what do you wear on your first date? The things you like to wear, man. What do you talk about? What you like to talk about so you can honestly see if we're a match.
Yeah, okay. That begins to look into the consideration of validation versus connection. And what's the point of dating? Is it to, you said get, am I going to get validation and I'm impression management, or am I going to experience the ooey gooey glass animals feeling of connecting to another person? And, I can't remember if this, I know who said it. Aubrey Marcus said it on his podcast one time that a persona can't receive love, only praise. And
100 billion million %.
And we date like that. We crafted this persona that we crafted 6 years ago, and we've just run it so many times now it's second nature. And leave the mask at home, show up in your favorite pair of whatever outfit you wear, and
That's right.
And it's just like, man, if you can feel comfortable enough in your skin with your desires, with your interests to show up like that and be okay if it doesn't go, if it doesn't turn into a second date, that's okay, because you're not looking for it to turn into a second date. You're looking for a wonderful connection. And if there's no connection, that's okay.
Brilliant. Yes. And people don't see it that way. And then you end up in my office 5 years from that date doing marital couples and sex therapy. And you're looking at me saying, can you create which never was and can't be? And I say, no, I can't create compatibility or chemistry, nor do I want to be able to. I don't want that kind of power. Right? Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have that. And I have to say that lovingly to some couples. There's really nothing here.
There's nothing here.
It's just ego. You want to be wanted.
That's right.
But there's just not enough there to work with.
That's right. You guys identified so heavily with personas you crafted for yourself that society gave you, and they fit like puzzle pieces, but you behind the mask do not have any compatibilities.
100%. And that's heartbreaking to have to see and tell people after years of marriage and kids and home ownership and all of these structures that further bonded them and kept them almost trapped and stuck. Don't do it.
Let's throw just last minute here. Let's throw one little thing in for the person that's listening that goes, I am in a marriage. Maybe I've followed what's been told to me for the first half of my life, and I have kids, a job, a 20-year marriage, and I am pretty locked in, I feel, and I don't feel that religiously I can leave this all in the dust. How can I begin to show up more authentically and make room for my authentic self in my life?
I would say two things. One, don't panic and start working from the things that maybe are working and the shared values you do have. So do find what is there. But outside of that, talk to your partner honestly about the fact that we've built these beautiful things that are important to us. We love our kids. We love our lifestyle. We love our home. There's meaning and value in that. But unfortunately, it looks like either we never were or we've grown apart. And just start talking about that, because just that conversation of truth is transformative in and of itself and can maybe lead to finding more or connecting on something deeper. I don't know, but just owning and having that conversation begins that process and is a powerful change agent in and of itself.
Yeah. For the person who has listened all the way through to this episode, obviously a lot of this really helped you and touched you a lot. And so I wanted to just give Dr. Chris a moment to, if you might, for the person that's listening to this, that everything we've talked about so far within what we've discussed in this conversation has really hit home for them. What might you just say as a word to encouragement as we close up this episode?
I want people to take more seriously that when we are brought into someone's life, either as a friend, a partner, a colleague, it's our job to make people's lives better and in the very least neutral. But if we are making people's lives harder, more negative, we need to pull ourselves out or do a lot of work on ourselves. People are in our care. And again, take seriously the responsibility of when you're brought in any way to someone's life, that you're there to make their life better, not harder.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And to everybody listening and watching on YouTube or tuning into a podcast platform, thanks for hanging out. Please don't forget to rate the show. It really helps get conversations like this to more people like you. Peace.